Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore podcast on your Evermore YouTube channel. It's Wednesday night. We are back in the normal slot. I'm your host, Chris, and I've been joined by a few lads who've had more shots in Newcastle than the Chelsea front line. That's for damn sure over the years. I've got the Statman, Mark. I've got the Silver Fox, Lee. And we've got the No Dickhead Policy founder and Vice President PK himself. How are we doing, lads?
Good, mate. Good evening.
Excellent. You guys have definitely had more shots in Newcastle over the years. I'm sure of that. I've been with you sometimes as well. Bloody hell. So we're going to get stuck in here just in a minute. A little bit of housekeeping before we do. We've got loads to talk about. This is our last, official normal Evermore podcast of the season while we break for this mental World Cup, which I'm sure we'll get stuck into in a minute. But just before we do a little bit of housekeeping, if you haven't already, please click the like and subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We are over 2,000 subscribers now. We're on about 2,039, which is awesome. Thank you so much to everybody who's done that. Continue doing it if you're new to the channel. If you've just found us, it's all free content. We don't charge anybody, so no subscription fees or anything like that. Just a bunch of mad Newcastle fans chatting about football and soon to be chatting about the World Cup, I'm pretty sure, in this break. And we are live tonight, as always. Jump in the comments as you always do. We've got a few of our regulars in there already, as we'll get stuck into in a minute. You can see Carl is ready to go. BT is in the house. Ash is there. I'm sure we've got some comedy lines coming from him. L. Stapleton is back as well as Geordie Toon for life. So let's get stuck right then to the topics then, lads. So Saturday was another amazing Newcastle United performance. The city was rocking. These two handsome devils below me were there. Lee Forster, I'm going to start with you, pal. How was the day for you, mate? Did you go mad? Did you rave in the metro station, mate, or did you just shoot off?
Before we start talking about raving and going mad and what have you, you stole my thunder because I was about to say, if anybody refers to the Silver Fox, the Silver Statter, Philip fucking Scarfield, I'm off. And you've gone within the first 15 fucking seconds. Jesus.
I'd be letting you down, Chris, if I didn't, mate.
You would. You would. Listen, it's just another Saturday at St James's Park in what's been a, mental season so far, but mental this season for all the right reasons as opposed to what we've seen in the past. PK will tell you, I'm the most pessimistic arse you've ever met in your life. Every week we'll sit outside, Lord, guys. It doesn't matter whether we're playing Cambridge in the third round of the Cup, Bournemouth at home, Palace at home. I'll sit there with a pint or my shandy as it might be, and I'll say, I'm worried about it this week. I'm worried about this. And PK's like, don't worry and what have you. But on Saturday, I actually had a little bit of confidence creeping in. Not that we'd win. I've not gone that far yet, but that we'd actually be able to get a result from the game. I didn't go into it fearing Chelsea. I went in with a little bit of confidence. It wasn't really because of the fact that Chelsea have been misfiring, which, let's be honest, they have so far this season. They've gone through a transitional period, having pedalled Tuchel and brought the other fella in. I can't remember his name for the life of me. But it's because that's the one. It's simply because we are a fucking good team and we should be going into these games these days confident that we can give anybody a game. We showed it against Man City, we showed it against Liverpool, showed it against Tottenham, showed it against Man United. So, when you look at the result, it's not a fluke. We had 10 shots to their 5. We had more shots on target than them. Possession-wise, we were 48% against their 52%. If you look at the previous games we've played against these for the past 3 or 4 years, we're probably sitting around the 65, lucky if we get to 60% possession for the opposition sort of thing. This year we held around, we went for them and what have you. Our pass accuracy was 82%, theirs was 84%. That's unheard of for Newcastle over the course of the past few years. One thing that I wanted to touch on, so this season we've given plaudits to the defence. What you call it, thou shalt not pass. The back five's been absolutely outstanding. Bruno gets all the plaudits every single week simply because of the fact he's absolutely one of the best footballers I've seen in Newcastle in my lifetime. Almiron, we all know what Almiron's done over. I wanted to give a little bit of credit to Willock and Longstaff. I think over the course of the past 4, 5, 6 weeks, over the course of this winning run we've had, the two of those have been absolutely outstanding, and I don't think they're getting the credit that they actually deserve for the performances and the engines that the two of them have got. Willock, he scored against, he scored the other week at Southampton. Fortunately, I thought he might go on a run, so I had him as first scorer. That's 14-1 on Saturday. Yay.
Nice.
But Longstaff with with the grounded covers and the sheer energy that them two are bringing to the team. I mean, in the 89th minute, you've got Longstaff putting Cucurella up in the air against the Millburn stand. Still, blood and thunder, 100%. And I just want to say a bit of a shout out for them too. It's very easy to focus on your defence, your Brunos, your Miggies, your Wilsons and what have you. But they're the two unsung heroes for me at the minute. The end of the game, very reminiscent of the big toothed twat from Liverpool when he's up and down towards the Kop, giving it that, getting the crowd going. I loved it. It just demonstrated that the players, to a man, are as invested in what's going on at the club as we are. I was very, very keen not to lose on Saturday. I said before the game to those who I was talking to, I didn't want to lose. I didn't mind draw. I didn't mind a draw. I just didn't want to go into a 6-week World Cup break off the back of a defeat. A draw would have been sufficient. But listen, all in all, apart from the incident that I think people might be aware of outside the black and white ball, I think the day was just the perfect way to finish the first 15 games of the season. Take a deep breath and go again at the end of January.
Absolutely. Great comment by Carl there. That tackle by Dan Burn, I think, accomplished it, didn't it? It reminded me of that clip against Leicester and the Rafa where everyone was flying in. PK, just as Lee said there, mate, it's a great shout. You know, we gave Willock a Longstaff a bit of love on the channel, haven't we? And I thought Willock was outstanding at the weekend. I thought certainly in the first half where, you know, they were trying to frustrate us. I mean, they came up here and played like Burnley, didn't they? You know, but Willock was always trying to make something happen. And I thought he was immense, mate, on Saturday. What was your take on it, mate?
I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I was a little bit against Lee actually on Saturday. I had a suspicion that we might come unstuck, and I don't really know why. I just thought it was one of those, you know, the atmosphere was similar to Arsenal, wasn't it? Under the lights, evening game, people were full of beer, and the atmosphere wasn't quite as electric as I'd anticipated for the first sort of 20, 25 minutes. We never really came out the blocks, did we? I don't think particularly well in the first half. I mean, they came to play like Burnley or Bournemouth or Palace and look for a 0-0, which was just baffling to me. But then you looked at their side and you looked at their midfield particularly, and you thought, well, hang on a minute. They're not as strong as maybe I thought they were going to be. And you're right, you know, the defence were brilliant as always, but I thought Willock and Longstaff were absolutely outstanding. We've spoken about Longstaff quite a bit in terms of his ability to give the ball away a bit too much sometimes. I just thought he was brilliant on Saturday night. And Willock, you know, there's no doubt in my mind that Willock and Longstaff have the best fitness stats and the best, I guess, energy stats, if you want to call it that, at Newcastle. I know Longstaff certainly has the best sort of miles covered, etc., on the pitch, but Willock was absolutely brilliant. I mean, they started with Joe Linton sort of out wide of the front three, and him and in the first half particularly, him and Willock were swapping those positions. So you know, Willock, there's no reason why Willock couldn't potentially end up playing almost that front wide three. What was happening with, you know, the high press that we had is actually with Joe Linton in that position, every time the ball was being pinged out, and I think it was initially, was it Azpilicueta was initially the sort of right wing back, and then no, it wasn't. It was Loftus-Cheek, wasn't it? And of course he went off injured. Every time Loftus-Cheek was getting the ball from Mendy out, Mendy out to the right, Joe Linton was just stopping him, tracking him down, the amount of balls he was winning, and Willock was doing exactly the same. So I went into half time and I'd said, you know, went for a half time beer with my mate Andrew, and I was like, seemed to me that we had less possession in that, but we were just chasing down and winning the ball back, but weren't doing a huge amount with it. And I saw the stats on the screen, and we had 57% possession in the first half, which against a team like Chelsea was absolutely outstanding. And there really only looked like being one winner in that game as the game progressed. And obviously, you know, Mickey setting up brilliantly setting up with that double header effectively. And then Willock just sticking it almost in the top bins was just, the ground just went electric. And other than Colin Gallagher's shot on target where Pope made a really good save, nothing, they offered nothing. But the thing, it was a funny one because, you know, we've won 5-1 at home to Brentford. We'll beat Villa 4-0 at home and absolutely just tore them new arseholes off the pitch. That was my favourite home win of the season, not because of the performance necessarily in terms of goals, but for the first real time, we came off that pitch and knew that teams are not going to bully us anymore. We're going to stand up to them man for man. And that tackle by Burn, that one that flew in from Longstaff, which actually at the time I thought might have been a red card, and I haven't seen it replayed. I thought, Christ, that's a bit naughty.
Bruno's was worse. Bruno's was worse. Did you see his?
Was it?
The lunge. Yeah, that was terrible.
I hadn't seen that. I don't. Oh no. Is that when someone went clear and he just lunged in?
Yeah, graceful. It was Roy Keane-esque. It was. Mate.
Yeah, and you look at Trippier, who's 32. He's played almost every minute for us this season, I want to say, and he lost the ball in the second half and came herring back, chasing back, and won the ball back off whoever it was. It might be Pulisic actually, in our own box, and we started another attack. It was just unbelievable. But right at the end, almost my favourite moment, we'd made all of our substitutions, and they still sent the cells out to warm up. And Cucurella, this must have been 92nd, 93rd minute. Cucurella went to take a throw in, and the cell stopped him taking it and got booked. So with him being on the pitch and he got booked for it, that was a magnificent moment. And then obviously everything just kicked off and fled off. Dan Burns' incredible tackle. And man for man, we weren't being bullied off that pitch. They were raging, weren't they? And we were standing up. Joe Linton went round flexing his biceps and his pecs, and came off that pitch, and it was like other clubs laugh at us for sort of celebrating and having that picture in the dressing room. But the fact that we did half a lap of honour at the end of the first half of the season, I thought was brilliant, because we have been so bloody good this season and deserving of that third place. So yeah, that was one of our favourites.
I think one of the things that wasn't lost on me was at the final whistle, where I think it was Byrne who squared up to Havertz. I think there was a little bit of afters from last season's elbow incident at Stamford Bridge. But the thing that got me was the fact that the first person in to defend Byrne was the closest thing we've currently got in the squad to a choir boy. I mean, who would have ever foreseen Jacob Murphy being first in line for a fight with an opposition player? But again, that's somebody you mentioned earlier, the Bruno tackle. Again, that's 96, 97 minutes or whatever it was, because we had 7 minutes of injury time. He realised he couldn't make the tackle. He couldn't actually make the tackle. So what he decided to do instead was just throw every sinew of his being towards the player to try and stop him from progressing. There was arms, legs, flailing and all sorts. He just threw himself, his body, his arms, his legs at Kovacevic to try and stop him. And again, that and Murphy, it just shows you the spirit that's ingrained in the team. They will literally die for the shirt at this moment in time. There's nothing those players won't give. And how does the saying go? We don't want a team that wins, we just want a team that tries. And Christ, we're getting that at the minute more than we've ever seen, I think.
Getting both. It's great, isn't it?
Absolutely. We've definitely got it. Mark, you and I watched it on the TV, so we had a slightly different perspective. But, again, it's another top six side coming to Newcastle. It's another top six side completely beaten by the new Newcastle United. We're going to look at this table soon, and I can't wait to look at it. I could look at it all night long, I'll be honest with you. But what was your take on the game, Mark? Did you think Chelsea came, as BT said there, with a flat back five, just trying to almost sit in and dig in and leave St James's with a point? Do you think that was Graham Potter's tactics as a Chelsea manager?
I think definitely come in and try and stifle Newcastle. You saw that with some of their tactics in terms of the number of players they were trying to surround Bruno with to try and stop Newcastle playing through Bruno. But again, we'll come back to Newcastle's style, that Newcastle's press, it was mentioned before, that you saw the same intensity in the press high up the field as you saw against Man City, where they're preventing Mendy from playing the ball out as he wants to, stopping that ball into the middle of the park, so he was constantly having to move to the sides. The number of occasions the ball had to go to Azpilicueta, and that's where I thought you were going before PK knocked the ball towards Loftus-Cheek, because that ball to Azpilicueta was on pretty much the only ball. But it was that high intensity, and Chelsea just couldn't match it. It faded a little bit going on to the second half, and Chelsea started to gain a little bit of a foothold. If you look at the possession stats, second half especially, it completely flipped the other way around. Chelsea kept much more of the ball, but didn't do anything with it. I mean, they had one shot on target in each half and just never really threatened. And Potter hasn't had the greatest of starts, I think, at Chelsea. There's a little bit of lack of continuity in where players are playing in terms of his formation and in his team. And you look at the form table for them now, they sit 15th. They haven't won in 5. Whereas you look at Newcastle, who've won their last 5. And I sort of went into watching that game thinking, well, Newcastle just have to take a chance here because the defence is so rock solid and Chelsea offer so little going forward at the moment that 1 goal would be enough. I think I went 2-1 in it, but looking at the way Chelsea set up and where they played, 1 goal was going to be enough, and it was an absolute snorter. And Willock thoroughly deserves that. Lee mentioned it before. He's put in such good performances over recent weeks, along with Longstaff. I completely agree with that. That they just deserve everything that's coming, and it's great to see Willock back on the score because I've been saying for bloody weeks that those goals are coming and they're coming, and I keep saying it every week, and then they've started. So I feel vindicated now.
One thing I just wanted to throw in the mix there. So cast your minds back to the Tottenham game and the second half from 65 minutes onwards on Saturday. I'll be honest with you, second half of the Tottenham game, I was shaking like a shit dog. I thought Tottenham are going to get back into it. 65 minutes onwards in the stadium on Saturday, shaking like a shit dog. Thought Chelsea were going to score. Watch both of those games back retrospectively and try to figure out why I was that way, why I felt that way. I think it's just a natural reaction during a live game to fear the worst. But in both of those instances, we had nothing at all. What do you call it? We had nothing at all to fear. We didn't look like conceding in either of those games, and that's just such a refreshing place for us to be. You go a goal up, and now you've got this confidence that we're not going to be breached. We're going to be able to defend a lead. When was the last time we were able to say that against any Newcastle side? And in that, I include your Benitez teams, your Robson teams, your Keegan teams. Newcastle have never had a defence where you could sit at a 1-0 after 60 minutes and think, we're capable of riding this out. I'll never get tired of it, believe me. But as I said, in the moment, shaking like a shitting dog.
I think we're conditioned. We're still conditioned, I think, from years and years of just blowing it and dropping the ball. I think, and that's why we feel that way. But talking about the intensity there, Mark's talking about. Eddie Howe's got it as a saying, isn't he? Intensity is our identity, and I think all the players are showing that on a regular basis. And what I love about where we are now, we're going to look at the league position in a minute and talk about where we could be, come season end. But you look at the way we're playing and who we've played, and the way we've handled games, as PK said, we've blown away teams. What you would have thought would have been in and around us, the likes of Brentford and guys like that, and Southampton, blown them away effortlessly. We've took on the best in Man City. We took the game right to them. We actually ended up probably losing a bit of discipline that game and letting them back in. Liverpool needed about 96 minutes to beat us at injury time. And obviously we played Chelsea and they were completely shot shy. They came into that game worrying about Newcastle United, not the other way around, as it has been for so many years. So the evolution of this team is utterly incredible. It really is. And it's great to see Eddie Howe getting the plaudits in the media from a lot of outlets who refused to give him that, maybe even mocked him coming in when he came in. They're all starting to change that tune now, aren't they, lads? And it's absolutely phenomenal to see. It really isn't. It's a good segue into kind of where we are in the next bit there. So we are third for Christmas. So when Christmas comes, when the fat man comes, we will be. I'm not talking about Mike Ashley. Fucking hell. We will be third for Christmas. And just have a little look at the league table here as a comparison. I'll come to you on this one, PK, just to start off with. So you can see there, and it often is said, what a difference a year makes. That's the table, match day 16 this year versus last year. And if we're going to play a little game of where's Wally, where's Newcastle on that one, mate, from the one on the right to the one on the left, it reiterates what a job Eddie Howe has done, mate, isn't it?
It's absolutely unbelievable. Look at that. We've got 3 times as many points as we had the same juncture of last season. Is just mental. So, Lee, you'll have seen this already. I wrote a small piece about sort of where we are this time this season. If I'd been in a coma before the takeover, So, October last year, and I woke up and turned to the guy in the bed next to me and said, how are Newcastle doing? Oh, we played 15 games. We've got 30 points. I'm like, what, in the championship? You'd just think that it's just an unbelievable turnaround. For Eddie Howe, who, as you said yourself, was doubted by many, many people, including our own fan base. We wanted a Unai Emery or a Jose Mourinho or whoever.
Even a Gerrard at one point. Some people
Gerrard was being touted heavily. Fonseca, that everybody thought he was coming in. To little old Eddie Howe, nice guy. Is he going to be a bit too nice? Couldn't defend at Bournemouth, shipped and leaked goals like they were going out of fashion. Fuck me, that man is an absolute genius. I call him Sir Eddiness these days because he is he's an absolute genius with what he's done. And, we keep talking about it. 5 or 6 of those players were pre-takeover players. So it's not like he's bought his way to third. We've bought incredibly sensibly. We've invested well. We've spent a bit of dough, but we spent less money than Villa in the last 2 windows. We certainly spent less money than Forest, and we spent less money than there was another team.
Chelsea.
Well, certainly Chelsea. You expect Chelsea to spend money, right? But the difference is that we're not signing Aubameyang, and we're not signing fucking, end of career mercenaries who want to be in trouble. Mendes has been talking to Newcastle about Ronaldo. Who makes up this kind of shit? You've seen the players that we've signed. It's just a load of bollocks. But the best thing he's done is to improve every single footballer, apart from probably Saint-Maximin. Every single footballer at our club has improved, is a million times fitter, and has a plan. They can slot in and they know what the plan is. And this is why I hate to say it, we are looking unbeatable at the minute. Who's beating us? Liverpool beat us in the 98th minute. Fucking jammy cunts, right? Excuse me, that's an awful word to use. But I was that angry with that. That's the only game we've lost in 17 games, including the 2 cup games this season. It's just unbelievable. I always try and go, for a bit of sanity, I try and go to my mate who's a Man City fan, just to say, are we really this good? I was speaking to him this morning and I said to him, Chris, can we finish in the Champions League? He said, I fully expect you to finish in the top 4. I've watched you. You are a really hard to beat, well-drilled team that don't concede goals and score goals. I expect that you'll finish in the top 4. And then
to be fair, that comment there, Mark, from another Mark Fleming, it's been the best turnaround in Premier League history. I mean, listen, Eddie Howe is a miracle worker. I know Jesus can turn water into wine and that, but he's not done what Eddie Howe's done. He couldn't have got Newcastle from bottom to clear the table, mate, could he? Come on. Let's give Howe his credit.
No, looking at that, it is an incredible turnaround. I mean, you argue that maybe Leicester's in that season is probably slightly better, going from bottom of the league with 6 games to go to winning the title the following year, if I'm being picky. But Jesus, you go from 10 points this time last season, looking sort of with despair at where the season was going, and now just looking, well, who's going to catch it going forward, and you just can't see that momentum slipping. I can't see Eddie Howe allowing that to now happen. It has been an incredible turnaround. As Mark said there, it's just phenomenal. And, I think you're right. Every club now is looking at going, actually, the serious challenge going on.
Unbelievable. Lee, just to get your take on this, mate. I mean, you're very pragmatic and very realistic in terms of your expectations of Newcastle. You've been married to this old lady for long enough, mate, that you know not to expect too much. And I'm talking about the club, by the way, not Mrs. F. Don't get me in trouble. But yourself and Di and a few others on the pod, you guys are very pragmatic. We've talked about 8th and 7th being a brilliant finish of the season, but you look at us now sitting in 3rd, and as PK says there, we've kind of played the best, we've played the rest. It doesn't look like there's many that's better than us, really, mate, in terms of getting a shot at that top 4. Do you generally think, now we're 3rd at Christmas, we've got a good shot at the top 4?
I think we've definitely got a shot at the top 4. Listen, I agree with PK and what he just said, and yourself. I think I can't see Eddie Howe allowing the mentality to shift. I can't see him allowing the players to lose the intensity and the focus that they've built. And I think that any players that come into the club over the course of potentially the January transfer window, I think we've seen already that mentality is instilled almost with immediate effect. You've seen that in all of the signings we've made since last January. Trippier, Bruno, Wood. The intensity is there from the outset. So it's obviously a culture that's ingrained at Dorsley Park, at the training ground and what have you. So yeah, I definitely think if the top 4 is achievable. I mean, listen, you talked about top 3 at Christmas, and I can't be the only Newcastle fan that probably 2 or 3 times a day casts their eyes over the league table and just has a maniacal smile on the face for no given reason. You've literally just shown the Premier League table, and the 2021 league table was on the right-hand side. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't even glance at it. I just focused on that spot in the table where we are.
We'll just see it again, Lee. We'll just see it again, just because you asked.
This weird sort of smile, inward glow it just gives you. It's crazy to think about, and it can't help but think, where can this lead to? Where can this lead to? I mean, I think it's known that the Isaac signing was effectively, it was an impulse signing that was sanctioned by Yasser Al-Rumayyan after the Wilson injury. Now, if he, as we've been told, visits St James's potentially for the Leeds game on New Year, and he gets that bug again and he thinks, where can this potentially take us? Who knows what he's going to be thinking come January the 1st when the transfer window opens. Listen, is he going to go full tilt at this is the year for a top 4 finish? This is the year where we can push. It might be 2-3 years ahead of schedule, but I said from the 7th of October last year, these guys aren't in it just to take part. These guys want to be the best they can possibly be. And if that means bringing that,
they want to take over.
If that means that schedule gets brought forward 2 years or even 3 years, they will do it. They will find a way to do it. I've been here before where we've been in the top 3, top 4 at around this sort of time of year under Robson, under Keegan, what have you. The difference with this is they felt like they were built on sand. It didn't feel like the foundations were solid. We all know what Keegan did with the academy and scrapped the reserves and the juniors and whatever. The Robson one was built on tomorrow's money as such. Yeah. This just seems to be built on far more solid foundations, and it feels long-term. It does feel long-term. So whilst the novelty at the minute is brilliant and everybody's staring at the league table like maniacs with a daft grin on the face, I think the long and the short of it is we need to get used to it, because I can see this being for the foreseeable future, and it's fucking brilliant. It is. It's so good.
Certainly for long-suffering Newcastle fans that you guys. Just on this, PK, just to get you in on this one as well. Lee touched on January transfer signings, and I've seen Ash's comment almost pop up instantly. James Maddison is the guy that we're all being linked to. I think that was going to happen in the summer. I've got my feelings on it about, ASM and everything else and what that would have meant for ASM. But, obviously Maddison's away on England duty. We've seen pictures of him and Callum Wilson sitting next to each other in the plane, which I think is amazing. Whoever's organised that is definitely a Geordie, I tell you that. But as Ash is saying there, PK, if we get Maddison in January, only Maddison, he's confident that will get us top 4. Do you share that confidence, mate, that one player could push us over the edge?
Yeah, very possible. I mean, I think Maddison's a game changer for us because he walks straight into that team ahead of Longstaff, really, doesn't he? Let's be honest. But it's just, I think the thing is, it's a squad game, and let's not run away with ourselves too much. Our first, let's say, 15 perhaps are brilliant. But you're going to get suspensions. You're going to get injuries. We saw in the League Cup game that putting in your Manquillos and Matty Target was let's say ring rusty. Say Maximum was ring rusty. Elliot Anderson was playing out of position and barely got a kick at the ball. And we know, Chris Wood does a job, but he just does a job and that's it. We're still, we're miles ahead of the curve. We know that. As Lee said, Isaac was a shit. We need a striker because Wilson's got injured. Let's just go and spend 58 million quid. Thank you very much.
Why not? Fuck it.
I genuinely think, let's see if we get a point at Leicester, right? They're playing quite well. Who knows what's going to happen after the break? Who knows how quickly we can pick momentum back up, etc., etc. Fortunately, we've got that League Cup game, which I think is a good one for sharpness, and I think he'll go strong in that one. But then you look at it in January, you think, the chairman might say, fucking hell, we're two, maybe 3 years ahead of where we're planning to be. We've got these commercial deals come in with Monster. Am I allowed to advertise on this show?
Yeah.
Monster, Saudi Air has been announced today. Nobody's going to tell me they're not big money, by the way. Nothing,
Definitely.
Nobody knows how much that is, etc., etc. But they're going to be big money that they've probably accelerated to bring in quicker than they maybe were going to, which will release more money in January. We finished Champions League in the Champions League spots this season. That means we are back and back for good quicker than we ever were going to be, because all of a sudden you're getting everybody wants to come to you because you're in Champions League. Everybody wants
the manager, PK, and the manager. Who doesn't want to play for that guy who can improve players the way he is?
Absolutely. I think we've all seen the high performance podcast that he was on. He was incredible.
Absolutely.
High performance podcast suggests that he's performing highly. Call me old fashioned, but I just think that, we don't have that many players in the World Cup. Man City, practically the whole fucking squad's there. Chelsea, practically the whole squad's there. Arsenal have shitloads of players over there. They're all going to come back and they're all going to be knackered. And we haven't got that many coming back, have we? Who's going to need a rest? Bruno, Trippier. They're not going to want a rest, are they? They're going to want to come back in. If we can hit that ground running come, those 2 games before the new year, then we open the window and then we've got the games coming up. We've got Arsenal away on the 2nd, I think. We can hit the ground running with them. We've only got 1 game a week plus cup games. All these other clubs are back in the Champions League in February, and they're going to be playing 2 games and then 3 games, and they've got backlog of fixtures
with a tired squad, as you're saying, with a World Cup worn squad as well. PK,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's a big thing.
I think it's a biggie, yeah. And I also think that I don't think January window is going to be quite as frantic as it might have been, because clubs now will be looking at what business they can do for January because they haven't got games. So, they'll have more time to prepare for the window. I'm not thinking it's going to be a mad dash scramble. Yeah, there'll be players that perform incredibly in the World Cup who all of a sudden think, they're going to be hot property. But I think in the main, I don't think it's going to be quite as ridiculous and stupid and, last minute deals as maybe it is in normal years, because there's more time to plan for it. I don't know. I might be wrong with that.
Possibly be a bit more measured, PK. Mark, just to bring you in on this, because it takes us for a good segue into the next bit as well. So William said in the comments there, based on the last 8 seasons, 4th place earned 70 points, 6th was 63, 7th was 59. He's got this in segments here. We were on pace for 76 points. If we only play at 1.75 pace, we still earn 70 points. He's talking your language, that man. Do you think that Matt's, do you think that William's right? Do you think the way that we're playing, and again, like the lads have mentioned there, the fact that Eddie Howe, and you mentioned Eddie Howe, just won't let these guys rest up. He's got no intention of stepping off the gas. Would you back against us finishing at least in the top 4? We're going to get into maybe higher in a minute, but would you back us to finish at least in the top 4, mate?
Absolutely. I mean, let's those last 8 seasons that William mentions there, 3 of those were 66, 67, and 66 points. So the average is 70, but there is precedent there for it to be lower than that. So, and those 2 of those were in the last 3 seasons as well. Now, we've seen teams are tripping over themselves this season, so that figure might sit in the 60s this year. There's absolutely no reason to think that Newcastle can't do that. I pulled up a couple of stats. In the last 10 years, only 3 sides have had 30 or more points at 15 games and not finished in the top 4. That was Arsenal in 2016, 2017, Chelsea in 17-18, and Leicester in 19-20. And there were 6 other sides that were top 4 after 15 games that dropped out, but all had less than 30 points. I can't remember off the top of my head now. It was Everton, Leicester. Was it Everton, Leicester, Arsenal? No, Everton, Leicester, Man U, West Ham twice, and Tottenham were those 6. So the precedent is there now for 30 points of 15 games, finish top 4. It happens more often than not. So there's a very, very definite chance of at least a top 4 finish, if not better.
Well, I was going to say, if not better, Jimmy's already took us in there for the next section. Are we genuinely title contenders? Jimmy in the comments saying we're going to win the league. If I can find it, we are going to win the league, Jimmy. So just to bring up that table again there, Mark. So, people have talked about this. Pep Guardiola has talked about this. I'm sure Pep's a closet Geordie now. I know how much you love Bobby. He loves to talk Newcastle up, doesn't he? But Pep Guardiola had said even a few weeks back, imagine this team with 1 game a week, as PK says there, with no European football. I mean, you look at this table, lads, and you might think you're batshit crazy to talk about it, but you look in there, we're only 2 points off the best team in the world in Manchester City with Erling Haaland, who isn't at the World Cup, which I think Aaron said in the comments is unbelievable. But we're only 7 points off Arsenal, who Mark's rightly saying there, do have a bit of a history of dropping a bollock or 2 when the pressure's on. We done them last season when the pressure was on for them, the Champions League. 7 points off a title charge. I'm gonna come to Lee for a sec as he's smirking. On this one, and then I'll jump back in with Mark there. Just, do you think we can win this league, Lee? Come on, mate. Are you going to allow yourself to dream or not, mate? What
Ever the pragmatist, I think I'm going to piss off Ash, Jimmy, and made me chuckle Pep Guardiola in the comments. Listen, it's something that's been put to me a few times. Can you win the league? And it's a tricky one. My head immediately says no. I mean, in the calendar year of 2022, we're 5th with 68 points from 34 games. City are still ahead of us with 75 from 32. Liverpool was 73 from 33. Arsenal 71 from 33 games, and then Tottenham with 70 from 36. So over the calendar year, we are still 5th. It might seem and feel better than that, but ultimately, I mean, it's night and day from where we've come from. But that being said, we're 15 points ahead in the calendar year of the next 2 best teams in Chelsea and Manchester United. Calendar year-wise, they're both at 53 points, which just absolutely beggars belief. Me and Paul will tell you the bookies aren't often wrong, and Manchester City are currently 5-2 on. Arsenal are 11-5, and Newcastle are 33-1, third favourites. I mean, can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Newcastle are 33-1, third favourites for the Premier League, but they are third favourites behind an odds-on favourite for a reason. Again, we come back to what might happen in January. That, let's be honest, we talked about it. Team's going to come back fresh potentially. Limited numbers going to the World Cup. Yasser might give Murdad his credit card. He might have what you call one of those moments again. Yeah, Murdad, go and see what you fancy in the January sales. We've got
Black Friday. We've got 40% off.
We'll have Maxi coming back fully fit. I mean, let's be honest, he's been working his way back to fitness over the course of the past few weeks. We'll have a 63 million with including bonuses, what we call it striker, to come back into the fold. And if we were then to add another couple of real quality additions who hit the ground running in the same way that all of the other signings that they've made since January 2022 have made, then all of a sudden my head's there saying no, but my heart's starting to just sort of err a little bit on the side of ridiculousness. So my heart says maybe, my head says no.
You're going to replace the Lynchman as a sensationalist of the podcast since he's disappeared. Mark, just getting your take on it before we jump in with PK. Already saying there in the comments that second would be a trophy this season, but bite your hand off the fourth right now. Do you think that, like Pep Guardiola, mate, I know you and him are both football purists and tacticians, but do you think
it's the first time I've been called that?
I thought it'd be nice to you for a change, mate. Do you think we've got a chance at this title? Look at those points, or again, do you think top four definitely title? Don't start talking about that. We're nowhere near that, mate. Do you think we're gonna fall over when the push gets the shove?
Is it dreaming a little bit for Newcastle to win the title? Probably. Is it a possibility? Why not? Look at the points. We touched on before. 30 points now. There's 23 games left. 13 of those are sides in the bottom 10. You've only got 7 games left against the big 6. So you could potentially go into those 13 games against sides in the bottom expecting to win. It's probably not going to happen, but you'd expect to win. That would take you to 69 points. The average since 2000-2001 for second is 81 points. So you'd only need another 12 points to hit that average.
That's a bad number for Newcastle fans, Mark. You're bringing up some bad memories with that number.
And the average for first is another 20 points. So you'd have to go some to hit that sort of average. But like we said, the teams around are falling over each other. City have lost games. Liverpool have lost games. Man United have looked awful. Chelsea have been shocking. The only one that's kind of stayed the course really so far is Arsenal, who have continued to win while not looking particularly good. And if they do have an Arsenal moment, we used to call it being Spursy, didn't we, for when Tottenham fell over themselves. But if Arsenal do one of their suddenly have a panic attack because they're too high and drop down a little bit, the door opens, and that 89 points for first might not be needed. You might only need 86, 87 points if the other teams around do start to continue to lose games at different points of the season. So it's not out of the realms of possibility. And Lee touched on it there. You get to January now, the window opens. You've only got a couple of games before the window opens again. That's Leicester and who is it? Leicester and
Leeds.
Is it Leeds?
Yeah. So Leicester and Leeds, 2 very winnable games. So let's say 6 more points in why not? The checkbook comes out, you sign another couple of players, and you don't need an awful lot, but maybe somebody for that midfield, another wide player or the likes of Maddison. That title is within reach. It sounds mad considering where we come from and considering where Newcastle were this time last season, but it's not out of the realms of possibility.
PK is itching to get in there. PK, how lovely would that title look with black and white ribbons around it, mate? It would just look beautiful, mate.
It would. We've got absolutely no fucking chance of winning the league. I'm sorry to piss on everybody's chips. No
PK.
chance.
You're right.
Not a hope in hell. But I'm just about to interject and tell you that if Manchester City win the league, which they will, by the way, and they win the Champions League, and Man United don't win the Europa League, which they're fucking not going to, top 5 get in the Champions League.
Ooh.
There's your realistic target.
Yeah,
and
definitely, mate. 100%.
And I'll tell you what, everybody's fallen over in the Carabao Cup as well. And City have now got Liverpool at home in the next round.
Do you fancy a cup, mate? You fancy a cup?
Well, so you always shit ourselves, don't we? But let's be honest. I booked a holiday for the middle of March, and I went to check the dates of the League Cup final, just in case I've made a massive faux pas. But it's at the end. It's the weekend of the 26th
28th,
of February.
Oh.
So, you covered that. You covered
26th, 27th, 28th. I was
right.
like, fucking hell, I didn't even realise. I'm like, usually you don't really care. Oh, I book a holiday, fine. If I miss a game, I miss a game. I'm still like, fucking hell, what have I done here? But we are not. Man City got the best striker in the world, Ash. They could win anything and everything.
And he'll be rested, PK, and he'll be rested because he's not at the World Cup.
Unless he goes on loan to a non-league club.
I heard about that. Yeah, that's great.
What a load of shite. No, are we winning the league? No, we're not winning the fucking league. We don't have a deep enough squad. Manchester City can just rotate their players. And Mahrez is barely getting a game. Pep Roulette is a killer for you fantasy football players. Foden and Haaland played. Foden's in and out. Bernardo's in and out. De Bruyne's pretty much a mainstay, but you stick him in your fantasy team, you'll rest him. They've got a much bigger squad. They're 14 years ahead of us in terms of their squad development. We're fucking not. Sorry, lads, we're not going to win the league this year.
Can I just put a little bit of context in this before we wrap up? Listen, I'm more than happy for somebody to come back to me next fucking June and tell me I'm an absolute prick because I was so wrong. But I think it's fair to say our form for the first 15 games of the season, I think everybody universally will say it's been fucking brilliant. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Newcastle, to get to 86 points by the end of the season, would have to improve their points per game by 25% over and above what they've already achieved. We'd have to be achieving nearly 2.5 points per game for the remaining 23 games of the season to hit the 86 points that Mark alluded to. It's not happening. It's not happening. As I say, come back to me in June and tell me I'm a prick. Tell me I was,
we're going to clip that, Lee. We're going to clip that. If we win the league, that's getting played everywhere.
2.5 points a game for 23 games isn't happening.
As Alan Hansen once said, you win nothing with kids. It's the same, isn't it? We've got no chance of winning the league. No chance.
Audie thinks you're going to try and steal Christmas here, Lee. He's not very happy with you. But just to go back to BT's comment quickly there, I'll stick with you, Lee. Now, I just want to one or two positions or names off all three that we're going to move on and wrap up just by talking about the World Cup, lads. So come January, somebody mentioned this a while ago, when we finished 5th with Pardew, the Cisse signing, and it was kind of what kicked us into that 5th position. He just added that bit of wow X factor. He won his games on his own at times. BT saying centre back and midfielder in January. If it's one or two players, Lee, what's the positions and who's the players, mate? Give us 2 positions and 2 names. If it is 2, you think we need.
So we'll go attacking midfield and James Maddison, and we'll go wide attacking midfield and James Maddison.
Just one man.
We don't need another centre half. We're well stocked at centre half. We talked about it earlier. For me, Maddison is a game changer. He is. So whether he plays as a 10, whether he plays wide midfield, I don't care. But both of the players we need to sign in January are called James Maddison.
Absolutely. Well, Audie's got a bit of me mentioning that. I might just screw your acca up there, Audie, in a minute. But so, PK, come to you. Who's your 1 or 2 signings, mate, in January? Positions and players.
If we can only get one signing, it's James Maddison. We're not changing that 4-3-3, but we haven't got anybody who is consistently playing that wide left position. As I've said on the weekend, it was Willock and Joan Linton. Murphy came on as sub. I think he came on the right, but never mind. ASM for me is not a long-term answer anymore, and I never thought I'd say that in the summer. So for me, you could play Maddison at that, or even Harvey Barnes. Fuck me, we'll have them both, right?
That's a good player.
The other position for me is a defensive central midfielder. Now, the names that you guys talk about, which is Alvarez, I think, at Ajax, and is it Sangara at PSV?
Yeah, PSV is a very good player.
I know nothing about these guys. I would love nothing more than either a Declan Rice, if he's attainable, or a fully fit for a couple of years and N'Golo Kante in that position. I think he would be a game
What's his
changer.
contract, Kante? What's Kante's contract? Is it running down?
I don't know his age. I know he's never fit.
He's out until February, I think.
Is he?
Shit. And I do think, as BT had said, he's here to centre back. I wonder if Lascelles is going to ask for a move in January.
Yeah, I think BT said that he's heard that Lascelles could be. So I think we'll see the back of Richie and Lascelles in January, and I think that'll free up squad spaces for a couple coming in. So it's interesting, mate. I think
we'd have to send the 2 of them on the way with everybody's best wishes as well. In fairness, because listen, Lascelles,
absolutely,
albeit limited, he served the club well. He has.
Wonderful
service. He's a good captain. He has, and I just hope if he does leave that he gets the recognition from the supporters that he actually
I think he will
deserves.
Yeah, It's a bit like very
He will.
different positions, but a bit like Kevin Nolan when he went down, and Kevin Nolan was that strong leader, and he's always welcome
Yeah.
in Newcastle, and you probably doesn't have to buy a pint. Mark, that's a hell of a name, Mikel Merino. Bring him back. What a signing that would be, mate, as defensive midfielder. What's your positions, mate, and who's your players before we move on? To the World Cup?
I completely agree with PK. Actually, I think somebody like Sangare would be an ideal player to come in. It kind of fits the mold, doesn't it? And Maddison, you can't really see past James Maddison being the standout choice as a player to come in and just take the side to another level, because he's that good. You don't have to bet him into the Premier League. He can just plug and play basically with him, because he's just going to come in and do exactly what he's been doing for the last few years. So yeah, I think those two positions certainly. Maybe I think you're right. If you maybe another centre back, if Lascelles moves on, the only other position that would be a bit of a worry, and it's with the lack of sort of form, I guess. Although he's not played an awful lot at right back with Manquillo, is somebody to come in and fill that gap.
That's a good comment right there by Alan. That brings that in.
Something bad was to happen to Trippier.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody that could come in and fill that role. Now, I think, is it Cody Drammer from Leeds was linked as a potential move, who did quite well playing in the Championship last season for Cardiff, I believe.
Yeah, we had the kid from West Ham as well, didn't we? The young lad from West Ham that fell over at the end.
Harrison Ashby, I think he's still wanted by Eddie Howe, according to reports I was reading earlier on. But I think Drama would probably be the more natural fit, I think, to be. He's that type of engine that Trippier has. So he might be the one to come and sit behind him and learn. He might not cost an awful lot as well, and would fit into that kind of that ethos of buying somebody for a reasonable amount and just develop them as Eddie.
I love Lamberty from Brighton, though, as Alan said in the comments. What a signing.
Can I just dive in and ask the question? I know he's been injured for the last couple of years on and off. Why can't he get a game at Brighton? I thought when he came through, he was absolutely outstanding as a footballer.
Different managerial style.
Is it down to the style, because he's more of a right back than he is as a wing back, maybe? Although when he started out, he was tremendous playing in sort of a wing back sort of role. So he's just not really got a look in. Yeah, he's fantastic.
The only other thing I would throw out there in terms of game time and a potential reason why he's getting a lack of it, whilst he's very, very exciting, and I wouldn't like to chase him for my wages because he's like shit off a stick, I do think he tends to get bullied.
He's quite slight, isn't he? He's quite small. Yeah. But
he's about as short as me, and he's a proper little midget.
Yeah. He is, but the Premier League's hugely physical. And your Trippiers and your, world-class fullbacks that you've got in that division, yet can handle themselves physically. And I just worry whether Lamps is able to do that. Yet he's still very, very young. He's got a lot of maturing and a lot of developing to do. So you never know. 2-3 years' time, he might grow physically, become more mature, and that'll be his time to shine. But I think that might be one of the reasons at the moment.
Who better to learn off Lee than Trippier? Do you know what I mean? A lad that can show him those things. As Ash says there, he's quite young. He can be coached as well. Jimmy agrees with you, PK, excellent player. That was a great name thrown in by Varane there. Ruben Neves, a smashing player. Moany-faced bastard, but a really good player. So, Audi, my choice, Audi, is there's only one choice for me in January. It's Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he's a great lad. I think he'd fit in really well with the rest of the squad. He's not a dickhead. I'm only joking. I had to throw that up because Mohammed has thrown in a couple of shocking Ronaldo comments, but we do agree with you, Mohammed. Thanks for tuning in there. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. But for me, it's got to be James Maddison. It really has. I think he just, as you lads said, he takes it to the next level. He's got the X factor. He can win you a game, when you're struggling. Look what he's done for Leicester. He's almost dragged him out of the shit himself. Because Vardy's too old, and him and Tielemans is another one I'd throw in there. I think he'd be great in our midfield, Tielemans. I really do. In terms of the holding midfielder, you're right. You look around them, Alvarez at Ajax stands out, but he's probably a 40, 50 million quid signing. I think if he has a good World Cup again, he'll be even more expensive than he is now. I asked the question in our chat whether we could go for Rice. I don't see any reason why we couldn't. The way we're playing and the side and the manager, but I think Rice has got his heart set on a Chelsea move, or possibly even Manchester United if they get their shit together. But yeah, for me, Maddison's the one, and possibly somebody who can come in that defensive midfield role, which I think would would definitely solidify us. Because if you look back at that City game, I think our lack of having, I know you call it a 4 PK, which I totally get, the lack of having a 6 sitting in front of that back 4, if we'd had that player to have come in, sorry, a 4 PK, if we'd had a number 4 for PKs, but to come in and play there, like Conor William, you're right, he's a smashing player. We've done a rumour hazard mark on him, didn't we? He's a really good player as well.
He's got a great goal on, was it Friday night against Dortmund for Gladbach as well? So he's a cracking player as well.
You know, the World Cup's coming, lads. That's a good segue into the last section that we've got there for our hopes.
Curry.
That segue Curry, mate. That's me. The World Cup lads, as I call it. But there's going to be loads of players in the World Cup, I'm sure, that'll catch our eye. Our scouting network is all over the place now compared to what it used to be. So I'm confident we'll sniff out a few diamonds in there as well. Mark, I'm going to start with you on this because you've got World Cup fever, as you said on What's Going On Monday, mate. PK feels slightly different, maybe I do as well, but that's because my team's just got stuffed off Turkey and they're not even there. But just looking at the World Cup lads, obviously you've got to start with England because we've got the most players in there. Yes, yeah. Can put your violin away. I'll get my bagpipes out. Starting with England. That wasn't a euphemism, by the way. We'll get them dodgy. They'll get them dodgy spam comments in a minute with that euphemism. But so just looking
Chris
at
to be seen on OnlyFans soon.
No one's watching that, mate. Starting with the England squad, obviously Trippier and Pope. We knew they were going to go. They've been part of the England picture for a while. Pope might not get a lot of game time. Trippier probably will. Wilson, is it just going to be a holiday in Qatar, mate? How do you think it's going to go for the lads? Yeah.
Well, for me, I mean, Trippier should start absolutely at right back.
Right or left back?
He's the best right back in the
right back
in the country at the moment. I think he starts at right back. He has to. I would absolutely start Pope because I think he's a much better goalkeeper than Pickford. I know the argument that from others that say, well, Pickford's never let us down at anything, but he's been in awful form the last few weeks, especially. And I want a goalkeeper that's confident and playing with a back, give the back 4 confidence as well. You're right. I don't think Wilson's going to play an awful lot. I think if England are through after the first couple of games, I think he probably gets more game time in the third game. But other than that, it's a case of picking up the odd minute here and there. So and I can't see England really getting beyond the quarterfinal. So it might be a shortened holiday for some.
PK, just to get you into there. So Jimmy reckons it'll be between Holland, Brazil, and France. England will be out after the group. Obviously, in terms of our lads, and all to bring it back to Newcastle because we're on Newcastle podcast. What's your hope for the lads who are going, obviously, to come back injury-free? Looking at Carl's comment there's a bit worried about Bruno getting done in training. It might not be as bad as that, but what's your hope for the Newcastle contingent over in Qatar, mate?
I hope none of them get a kick or a game, to be perfectly honest. Just part of that squad. I really hope Pope doesn't start. Pope, I saw a stat today, Mark, you like this. Pickford's conceded 1.4 goals this season and Pope's conceded 0.7. So Pickford's effectively conceded twice as many goals as Nick Pope this season.
But he walked in because he's Southgate's favourite.
Again, it's incredible. Nick Pope will have a nice little jolly. Thank you very much. He ain't going to start. We know what Southgate's like. Southgate just picks his favourites. Harry Maguire will play every game probably until he gets sent off against Iran, which is the first game I know. But what my hopes for the World Cup? I did a group winner kind of thingy that I've shared with the group earlier. I think England will get beat in the quarterfinals of France. I think Brazil will beat Belgium in the final. I think Brazil are unbelievable. But I need to watch the 3-parter on Italia 90. And when I do, I'm going to watch that on Friday. And when I watch that, that's going to get me right in the mood for it. Because at the minute, I'm still too Newcastle United. I couldn't give a shit about the World Cup at the minute. Stupid fucking Christmas World Cup bastards.
It is ridiculous. Lee, what's your take on obviously the England lads and maybe some of the other boys as well? I don't know about you, man. I'm really excited to see what Garang Qual does in the World Cup. Is he going to burst on the scene like a certain Michael Owen did for England? I know before he become a world-class shithouse, obviously. You know, think
really
Garang Qual could have one of those?
I am really looking forward to seeing Kroll. But more than anything, what I would like to say first, if you're talking about Newcastle lads, if Sven Botman can't get in that Dutch squad, you might as well give them the trophy now, because no is going to score past them if Botman can't.
He's been watching what's going on Monday, because that's exactly what I said.
That's exactly what you said on Monday.
I literally can't get my head around the fact that somebody over there has picked Nathan Ake to get in ahead of Sven Botman. It just doesn't get me head around. Listen, I'll just second what everybody else said. I think get them back fit. I couldn't give a monkey's if they didn't get a minute between them. I do think, I know there's a lot of calls for Nick Pope to start, but with all the best will in the world and taking my black and white tinted glasses off, the reason that Pope's not going to start is, if we are brutally honest with ourselves, Pickford's better with his feet than Pope. Pope looks nervous. Absolutely. A lot of the time when the ball's at his feet.
Yeah, it can be.
And you can't dispute the fact that, I mean, it's a good job Pickford's good with his feet, because he's shit with his arms, let's be honest.
Well, they're too small.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Pope's not going to get any time unless there's an injury. I do think Wilson's got a good chance of getting some minutes in the first game against Iran, because I can see England being outside by 50, 60 minutes. And if that is the case, Wilson will get a run out. I think Trippier's nailed on the start. But similarly to Paul, I literally just cannot see. I think we'll go out in the quarter-final stage, again, against France. We'll beat Ecuador or Senegal, I think, in the round of 16. The only thing that potentially could see us trip up in that game is the conditions will be better suited to those two teams, but I think we'll get through. And this is, I think, that we'll be knocked out by France. I can't see past Brazil. You look at their squad. Defensively, I think they can be got at. But the thing is, every team that's going to come up against Brazil is going to be so preoccupied with their midfield and forwards. They effectively don't need a defence. I mean, I was looking at their squad, and when you look at it, you've got Anthony, Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, Neymar, Pedro, Rafinha, Richarlison, Vinicius Jr. I mean, they will score goals for fun against any team, and I can't see any team living with them. And listen, pray God, what I wouldn't give to see Bruno come back with a World Cup winners medal around his neck, the effect that would have on him for the second half of the season. Because without wanting to be sacrilegious, I think for the past 2-3 games, Bruno's not been at his absolute imperious best. I think he's had a little bit of a downturn in form. And the fillip that he would get from picking up a winners medal in Qatar to take into the second half of the season just doesn't bear thinking about. So for me, pardon?
The trouble being with that is he's going to need a break when he comes back if he goes all the way to the final.
Possibly. I mean, what it does do as well, though, I think you're right, Lee. What it does do, it doesn't just boost Bruno, but it also shows Newcastle as a showcase club where you can go win a World Cup and play for Newcastle United, and it gives us even more gravitas in the transfer window for getting players in. You know what I mean?
Bruno's Newcastle's poster boy. He's our poster boy. Whereas 12 months ago, 18 months ago, it was St. Maximin. Believe me, under no illusions, Bruno's Newcastle United's new poster boy, and his face will be spread all over the world over the course of the next 12, 18 months, becoming the face of Newcastle United. If he was to be that poster boy and a World Cup winner, the positive impact it could have on Newcastle's reputation, again, you can't buy that. Well, we might be able to because we're Saudis, but previously you couldn't buy that sort of positive publicity.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, just to finish it off, lads, for me, I mean, I think with the England squad, I think the way Southgate's kind of had them set out. He can have the players. I mean, if anyone's seen the breaking news about Ivan Toney, that stops the argument about Wilson being there ahead of Toney straight away. He obviously was going to get done for that. That, to me, was the reason he wasn't in the squad. But listen, I think Wilson would have been anyway, as well as Toney. We're going back to England's chances. I agree with Mark. I think they might come unstuck after the group stages. So our England lads will be back after that, and I think Wilson might get some cameos here and there. I think if they struggle to break down teams, I think you'll get a chance because Southgate knows you can get a goal. Pope will not get any game time. I don't think Trippier will play more than any of them, which is a big concern if he gets anything happens to him, fatigue. But yeah, I think Bruno probably go all away in the final. And I think that what's that? Someone in the comments there. Yeah, Bruno will go all the way to the final. I think. Do you know what? I can see a Brazil-Argentina final, and something in my bones tells me I love Brazil, but something in my bones tells me
semi-finals. That's going to be Chris.
Was it semi-final? Sorry.
Yeah, they're in the same half.
Semis.
Yeah, something tells me
goes lightly.
Yeah, you got to think about this is Messi's last chance to do something, and maybe the stars align for Messi to do that, to win that World Cup, and then that's that's a great way to send them up. But listen, I think Brazil are class lads, like you say. I'm like PK. I can't really get excited about this World Cup. I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it should be where it is. It's screwed everyone's domestic seasons up by being at the time of the year that it is. I think it's going to put players' fitness at risk as well. I think coming back, there's going to be injuries. It might play in our favour, as you've already said, lads, and some of the guys in the comments said in terms of our quest for top 4 or beyond. But yeah, it's a ridiculous World Cup. I can't get too excited about it. But listen, I'll still watch it, because I love an international tournament. I don't like pre-season friendlies and Mickey Mouse, conference bus stop winners' cups or whatever the hell they are. I like a proper tournament, and this is a proper tournament. So we'll get. I'm sure we'll all get on board and get stuck into that. But that's us wrapping up, lads. We've gone over an hour, so thank you everyone who's jumped in the comments. We always appreciate it. It really helps the episode flow. We probably won't be back with another Evermore as it is next Wednesday, but we will come up with something. I'm sure, Mark. We'll get our thinking caps on. We've got a few things we're going to do. A few specials. We're going to talk about some former Newcastle United managers. We're maybe going to pick a Geordie 11. That might be a good one to check out, and possibly even talk about the rising costs in football as well, which in our chat the other day was very, very topical. So keep it Evermore, lads, over the World Cup. We will try and bring you some content, and I'm sure we'll all be watching the World Cup with interest and praying that our lads don't get knackered again. And as Mark said there, he's keeping me right. If you haven't already, you're new to the channel tonight, smash the like and subscribe button. Come and join us. All free content. This just a bunch of football fans chatting about the world's best club at the minute that's going places. So
we're third.
We're third in the league, and one of our players is going to win the World Cup. What a great way to sign it. It's goodbye from me and the lads, and we'll catch you next time on Evermore, everyone.
See you guys.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.